Rick Sanchez is supposed to be the hero of Rick and Morty, right? He's the genius scientist who saves the day, defeats evil aliens, and protects his family from interdimensional threats. He's the coolest character on the show, the one with all the best lines in the portal gun. But what if I told you that Rick isn't actually the hero? What if Rick Sanchez is secretly the biggest villain in the entire show, and we've all been rooting for the bad guy this whole time? I know, sounds crazy, but when you actually look at Rick's actions throughout the series, the evidence is pretty damning. We're talking about a guy who's caused more destruction, pain, and chaos than literally every other villain combined. Today we're building the case that Rick isn't just morally questionable or an anti-hero. He's straight up the main antagonist of his own show. And by the end of this video, you might never look at your favorite portal gun wielding grandfather the same way again. Let's dive into why Rick Sanchez might actually be the worst person in the multiverse. Rick destroys more lives than any other villain.
Boy, Morty, I really Cronenberged the world up, didn't I? You got a whole planet of Cronenbergs walking around down there, Morty.
Let's start with the obvious one. Rick has a higher body count and destruction rate than every other villain on the show combined. Think about it. The worst thing most Rick and Morty villains do is threaten one planet or maybe one dimension. Evil Morty wants to escape the central finite curve. The Galactic Federation wants to control a few dozen planets. Tammy betrays Bird Person and ruins a wedding. But Rick casually destroys entire realities, like he's changing TV channels. The Cronenberg dimension alone has billions of victims. Rick turned every human on Earth into grotesque monsters and then just left them to figure it out. That's not just mass murder. That's creating a planet-wide horror show and then abandoning the survivors.
Bet you're loving this, Morty. This must be the best day of your life. You get to be the mayor of I Told You Town.
And that's just one Tuesday for Rick. He's created universes full of people just to power his car battery. He's abandoned dozens of dimensions when they became inconvenient. He's caused interdimensional wars, destabilized entire governments, and committed genocide so casually that he forgets to mention it. Most villains have evil schemes that affect thousands of people. Rick has science experiments that accidentally wipe out billions. And his response is usually, whoops, anyway, want to get ice cream. The crazy part is that other villains at least have goals or motivations. Rick destroys lives because he's bored on a Tuesday afternoon. Rick manipulates everyone around him.
I'm gonna need you to take these seeds into the bathroom, and I'm gonna need you to put them way up inside your butthole, Morty.
My butt?
Put them way up inside there.
Here's where Rick gets really villainous. He's a master manipulator who controls everyone in his life through lies, emotional abuse, and mind games. Let's start with Morty. Rick constantly tells Morty that he's stupid, worthless, and lucky to be included in adventures. But we've seen what Morty can do when Rick's not around. He's actually pretty capable and brave. Rick keeps Morty insecure and dependent on purpose. Rick literally erases Morty's memories whenever his grandson shows too much independence or confidence. He's not protecting Morty from trauma. He's erasing evidence of Morty's growth to keep him controllable. Then there's Beth. Rick knows exactly how to push her buttons, offering her just enough attention and approval to keep her desperate for more, but never enough to actually heal their relationship. He dangles the possibility of adventures and validation in front of her like a carrot on a stick. And Jerry?
Who do you think had more taken from them when you shot 20 cc's of liquid dream killer into my daughter? You act like prey, but you're a predator. You use pity to lure in your victims. It's how you survive.
Rick could easily ignore Jerry or even be civil to him. Instead, Rick goes out of his way to humiliate and belittle Jerry at every opportunity. Not because Jerry's actually a threat, but because Rick enjoys having someone to feel superior to. Even Rick's friendship with Bird Person was manipulative. Rick used Bird Person's loyalty and trust to fight his personal war against the Galactic Federation. And when Bird Person got captured, Rick's main concern was that his own secrets might be revealed. Classic villain behavior. Surround yourself with people you can control, manipulate their emotions to keep them loyal, and dispose of them when they become inconvenient. Rick never faces real consequences.
Everything is fine. There's an infinite number of realities, Morty. Now we can just slip into the place of our dead selves in this reality, and everything will be fine.
One of the clearest signs that Rick is the real villain, he never actually faces meaningful consequences for his actions, and he actively avoids taking responsibility whenever possible. Destroyed a dimension? Just move to a new one. Hurt someone's feelings? Erase their memory? Created a monster that's terrorizing the galaxy? That's tomorrow, Rick's problem. Real heroes face the consequences of their actions and learn from their mistakes. Villains find ways to escape responsibility and keep making the same destructive choices over and over again. Rick has perfected the art of dodging consequences. His portal gun isn't just transportation, it's his get out of jail free card. Made a mess in one reality, just hop to another where that mess doesn't exist. And when Rick can't run away from a problem, he manipulates other people into fixing it for him. He'll guilt trip Morty into helping, blackmail Beth into covering for him, or just straight up lie about what actually happened. The few times Rick does seem to face consequences, he finds ways to undo them or minimize their impact. Got arrested by the Galactic Federation? Manipulate them from the inside and bring down their entire government. Family mad at you? Show them a fake memory that makes you look sympathetic. Rick has spent decades building systems to ensure that he never has to actually deal with the results of his actions. That's not heroic, that's supervillain level preparation. Rick's solutions always make things worse.
He bails on everybody! Morty! He bailed on Mom when she was a kid! And in case I never made this clear to you, Summer, he bailed on you!
Here's a fun pattern. Whenever Rick tries to help or solve a problem, he inevitably makes the situation 10 times worse than it was originally. Morty wants to ask Jessica to a dance. Rick's solution creates a global apocalypse. The family wants to have a nice day at the spa. Rick's relaxation method splits them into toxic and healthy versions and nearly destroys their personalities. Morty's having relationship problems. Rick builds a device that traumatizes his grandson and destroys his ability to trust love. But here's the really villainous part. Rick often creates these problems on purpose. He doesn't want simple solutions because simple solutions don't require Rick's involvement.
All right, Morty, whoever you smear this stuff on will fall in love with you, and only you, forever. Are you happy now, Morty?
Heck yeah!
Take the love potion episode. Rick could have just encouraged Morty to talk to Jessica like a normal person. Instead, Rick immediately jumps to the most complicated, dangerous solution possible. Why? Because if Morty learned to handle his own problems, he wouldn't need Rick anymore. Rick doesn't solve problems. He creates bigger problems that require more Rick. It's like if a firefighter was secretly an arsonist who started fires just so he could be the hero who puts them out. And when Rick's solutions inevitably backfire, he doesn't try to fix them. He just abandons the mess and moves on to create new problems somewhere else. Rick enjoys other people's suffering. This one's dark, but Rick genuinely seems to get pleasure from watching other people struggle, fail, or suffer, especially when he's the cause of their pain. Look at how Rick treats Jerry. Rick doesn't just dislike Jerry. He actively goes out of his way to humiliate him and destroy his confidence. Rick could easily ignore Jerry or even be neutral toward him, but instead he chooses to be cruel because he finds it entertaining. Or think about the vat of acid episode.
I was just having fun!
So is Jeffrey Dahmer. Don't ever make fun of me again, ever!
Rick puts Morty through elaborate psychological torture just to prove a point about questioning his authority. Rick literally makes his grandson fall in love with someone and then reveals it was all fake just to demonstrate his power. Rick also seems to enjoy it when his family members fight with each other. He'll make little comments designed to create conflict, then sit back and watch the drama unfold like it's his personal soap opera. And let's not forget Rick's reaction when other people try to be happy or successful. Remember when Healthy Morty was confident and dating Jessica? Rick couldn't stand seeing Morty happy and independent, so he forcibly merged him back with his toxic half. Heroes want the people around them to be happy and successful. Villains want to be the center of attention and can't handle it when other people are doing well without them. Rick has zero empathy for anyone.
The fuck is wrong with you?
Just admit it,
How are you talking to me like this? When did you get so cocky?
Tonight!
The most telling sign that Rick might be a sociopathic villain, he shows absolutely no genuine empathy for other people's pain, even when he's the one causing it. When Rick turned everyone into Cronenberg monsters, his reaction wasn't horror, guilt, or determination to fix his mistake. It was mild annoyance that his science experiment didn't work as planned.
Okay, well, sometimes science is more art than science, Morty. A lot of people don't get that.
When Rick traumatizes Morty with horrific adventures, he doesn't seem to understand or care about the emotional impact. To Rick, other people's feelings are just obstacles to his fun. Rick has watched Morty cry, scream, beg him to stop, and have complete mental breakdowns. And Rick's response is usually some variation of, "Get over it, Morty," or "That's what you get for questioning me." Even when Rick occasionally shows what looks like affection or protectiveness, it's usually possessive rather than caring. Rick doesn't want Morty to be hurt because he cares about Morty's well-being. He doesn't want his favorite toy to be damaged by someone else. The microverse episode is a perfect example.
You have a whole planet sitting around making your power for you? That's slavery!
It's society. They work for each other, Morty.
Rick created billions of conscious beings and then treated them like appliances. When they developed their own culture and started questioning their purpose, Rick was annoyed that his battery wasn't working properly, rather than impressed that his creations had achieved consciousness. That's not the reaction of someone who values life or sees other beings as having inherent worth. That's the reaction of someone who sees the entire universe as existing for his convenience. Rick corrupts everyone he gets close to.
Like father, like goddamn daughter! You wanna be like Rick? Congratulations! You're just as arrogant and just as irresponsible!
Here's one of the most insidious ways Rick acts like a villain. He systematically corrupts every person he spends time with, turning them into worse versions of themselves. Morty started the series as a sweet, innocent kid with a good heart. After spending time with Rick, Morty has killed people, manipulated others, and become increasingly cynical and ruthless. Rick didn't just expose Morty to violence, he trained him to enjoy it. Summer went from a typical teenage girl to someone who casually participates in Rick's schemes and barely flinches at interdimensional horror.
Time to set the rules.
Lay it on me.
No whining.
Done.
No crying.
As if.
And absolutely positively no getting attached. We're here to smash Mac's ass. Quantity over quality. Deal?
Deal.
She's become more selfish, more willing to hurt others, and more addicted to the excitement of Rick's adventures. Even Beth has gotten worse. She's become more willing to abandon her responsibilities, more cruel to Jerry, and more obsessed with winning Rick's approval at any cost. This is classic villain behavior. Heroes inspire people to be better versions of themselves. Villains corrupt people and drag them down to their level. Rick doesn't accidentally make people worse. He does it systematically. He needs everyone around him to be morally compromised because it makes them easier to control and less likely to judge his own actions. The really scary part is that Rick seems to enjoy the corruption process. He gets satisfaction from watching good people make bad choices, especially when he's the one who convinced them to do it. Rick's love is actually control.
I can't fucking do this anymore!
That was seriously fucked up. We almost died.
So you agree?
Fuck yes!
Whenever Rick shows affection or protectiveness toward his family, look closer. It's usually about control rather than genuine love. It's like if someone kept pushing you into traffic and then bragged about how often they pulled you to safety. Rick protects his family from external threats, but he's usually the biggest threat they face on a daily basis. Rick has traumatized his family more than all the alien invasions and interdimensional criminals combined. And when Rick does something that looks selfless or caring, there's usually a selfish motive hidden underneath. Rick doesn't sacrifice for his family because he loves them. He sacrifices because losing them would be inconvenient for him. The clearest example is how Rick reacts when family members try to be independent. If Rick truly loved them, he'd be happy to see them grow and succeed on their own. Instead, Rick sabotages their independence because he needs them to need him. Rick's version of love is, I'll take care of you, but only if you never try to take care of yourself. That's not love. That's emotional kidnapping.
You trying as hard as you can to hurt me right now proves my point.
I'll let you know when you have a point, and the world will know when I try to hurt you.
Here's something that sets Rick apart from traditional heroes. He lies constantly about everything to everyone, including himself. Rick lies about his motivations, his past, his feelings, his plans, and his reasons for doing things. He creates elaborate false memories, manipulates evidence, and gaslights people into questioning their own perceptions. And Rick doesn't just lie when it's convenient. He lies even when telling the truth would be easier. It's like he's addicted to deception and can't have a genuine interaction with another person. The scary part is how good Rick is at lying. He can create fake memories that are indistinguishable from real ones. He can manipulate people's emotions so skillfully that they don't even realize they're being controlled. Heroes might keep secrets to protect people, but they generally try to be honest when possible. Villains lie because they enjoy the power that comes from controlling other people's understanding of reality. Rick has turned lying into an art form, and he uses that skill to maintain control over everyone in his life. When you can't trust anything someone says, it becomes impossible to make informed decisions about your relationship with them. Rick enjoys being feared more than being loved.
You're a piece of shit!
Just say you can't do it!
I won't!
You won't say you can't!
Fuck you, Morty!
Fuck you!
Fuck you!
The final piece of evidence that Rick might be the real villain. He consistently chooses to be feared rather than loved, and he seems to prefer it that way. Rick could easily be more supportive, encouraging, and kind to his family. He's shown moments of genuine affection, so we know he's capable of it. But Rick consistently chooses to be intimidating, unpredictable, and emotionally distant instead. Why? Because fear is more reliable than love. People who love you might eventually leave or betray you, but people who fear you will always be careful around you.
You're a great inventor. We just got a couple things to work on. Let's start with inventing a little honesty. Sound good?
Thank you, Morty. Sounds good. Or maybe I'll just kill you.
What? Whoa, Rick!
Rick has built his entire identity around being someone that others are afraid to cross. He wants his family to think twice before challenging him, questioning him, or trying to live independently from him. And when someone stops being afraid of Rick, that's when he gets really dangerous. Look at what happened when Morty started standing up to him more often. Rick immediately created situations designed to remind Morty who's really in charge. Heroes want to be trusted and loved. They want people to feel safe around them. Villains want to be feared and respected. They want people to remember that crossing them has consequences. Rick has chosen fear over love at every opportunity, and he's built his relationships on intimidation rather than genuine affection. The case for Rick as the ultimate villain. When you add up all the evidence, a pretty clear picture emerges. Rick Sanchez displays every classic trait of a master villain. He causes massive destruction without remorse. He manipulates everyone around him. He avoids consequences and refuses to take responsibility. He enjoys other people's suffering. He corrupts good people and turns them into worse versions of themselves. He lies constantly and creates false realities. He rules through fear rather than love. But Rick is even more dangerous than a typical villain because he's convinced everyone, including the audience, that he's actually the hero. He's the ultimate manipulator because he's manipulated us into rooting for him, even while he destroys everything around him. Traditional villains are obvious about being evil. They have evil schemes and evil laughs and evil costumes. Rick is terrifying because he's made being evil look cool, funny, and even sympathetic. Rick has convinced the world that intelligence justifies cruelty, that being smart means you don't have to follow rules, and that caring about other people is weakness. Those aren't heroic values. Those are supervillain values. So there you have it, the case that Rick Sanchez isn't the brilliant anti-hero we all thought he was, but actually the most dangerous villain in the entire show. Rick doesn't fight evil. He is evil. He just happens to be charming, funny, and smart enough to make us forget how much damage he causes and how many lives he destroys. The most terrifying part about Rick isn't his intelligence or his technology, it's his ability to make us sympathize with him even when he's being absolutely horrible. He's convinced us that his victims deserve what they get, that his cruelty is justified by his intelligence, and that his abandonment issues excuse his terrible behavior. Rick Sanchez might be the most successful villain in television history because he's the only villain who's managed to make the audience love him while he destroys everything we're supposed to care about. The real tragedy of Rick and Morty isn't that the universe is cruel and meaningless. It's that the person who's supposed to protect this family from that cruelty is actually the one causing most of it. What do you think? Is Rick actually the villain of his own show, or am I being too harsh on everyone's favorite interdimensional grandfather? Let me know in the comments, and don't forget to subscribe for more videos. And remember, just because someone's the protagonist doesn't mean they're the hero. Sometimes the most dangerous villains are the ones who convince you they're on your side.